Everything begins with noise. The kind of noise that lives in your pocket, floods your screen, and crawls into your mind before you even take your first breath of the day. You feel it long before you understand it. Alerts, opinions, predictions, warnings. Every voice demanding urgency. Every sound pulling you away from yourself. You wake up already behind, already pressured, already drowning in the emotional marketplace where everyone trades confidence for panic and patience for impulse. You scroll, you compare, you react. And with every reaction, a piece of your clarity disappears. You don't choose your pace anymore. The noise chooses it for you. It pushes you to chase what rises, flee what falls, and second guess every move you make. It traps you in a cycle of fear and urgency, convincing you that action without thought is better than patience with intention. And in that cycle, wealth is lost, not through lack of intelligence, but through lack of calm. This is where most people live, in a storm of noise, reacting instead of reasoning, hoping instead of planning. They don't invest, they gamble, they don't decide, they follow. They let emotion become the invisible hand that moves their choices, their money, and eventually their life. And every storm feels personal because every storm is internal. But here is the truth you've felt but never named. Noise is the enemy, not the market, not the news, not the uncertainty. Noise, emotional, relentless, unfiltered, is what turns intelligent people into impulsive actors. And until you learn to silence it, wealth will always feel unstable, fragile, temporary. You have lived long enough inside emotional investing to know the cost. Sleepless nights, rushed trades, constant regret, constant tension. You move fast but never feel ahead. You hear everything but understand nothing. Your decisions become reactions. Your reactions become habits. And your habits build a reality ruled not by logic, but by noise. But there is another path, a quieter one, a clearer one, a path where you stop letting emotion dictate your future, a path where you rise above the noise instead of wrestling with it, a path where your decisions become deliberate, measured, steady. This path is the foundation of everything the calm investor becomes. Because calm is not weakness. Calm is not passivity. Calm is controlled power, collected, intentional, unshakable. Calm is the ability to think clearly when others panic, to wait when others rush, to execute when others hesitate. Calm is the competitive advantage no algorithm, no headline, and no trend can replicate. But to reach that level, you must begin where most people refuse to look, inside the storm, inside the noise, inside the emotions you've mistaken for instincts. When you understand how the noise manipulates you, you begin to reclaim your agency. You begin to see the difference between reaction and reason, between urgency and strategy. This introduction is your doorway out of chaos. It is the moment you stop being pulled by every fluctuation and start becoming anchored in your own principles. You are shifting from a world where emotion makes your decisions to a world where clarity does. From noise to signal, from panic to presence, from reaction to mastery. Because this journey is not about knowing more charts, more strategies, more opinions. It is about stripping away everything that distorts your perception. It is about feeling less so you can think more. It is about becoming the kind of person who stays calm under pressure, centered under chaos, and disciplined under uncertainty. You are about to learn how to detach from the noise that once controlled you, how to step back from the emotional marketplace and enter the realm of deliberate wealth building, how to trade impulsive action for intentional discipline. This is not merely a new strategy. It is a new identity, one built on clarity, patience, and calm power. And as this chapter closes, the shift begins. You step out of the storm and into your own mind. You feel the silence beneath the noise, the clarity beneath the chaos. This is your turning point. The moment noise stops being the enemy and calm becomes your greatest strength. And from this beginning, your transformation into disciplined mastery truly starts. Chapter 1. The Myth of the Rational Investor. Most people believe they are rational when they invest. They believe they weigh the facts, study the charts, compare the risks, and act with logical precision. But the truth is harsher. Most people invest from the gut, not the mind. They invest from fear, from greed, from ego, from impulse. They react to noise instead of responding to reality. And every emotional decision carves a quiet cost into their financial future. You've seen it in yourself. You've seen it in others. The rush of excitement when a price rises, the drop in your stomach when it falls, the temptation to chase because everyone else seems to be winning, the urge to sell because everyone else seems to be panicking. These are not rational impulses. These are emotional storms disguised as strategy. And if you don't acknowledge them, they will own you. The myth of the rational investor is a story people tell themselves to feel in control. But control is not a feeling. It is a discipline. It is the mastery of your inner world before you attempt to master the outer one. Without that mastery, your decisions are shaped by invisible biases, confirmation bias, loss aversion, herd mentality, biases that whisper to you, push you, tilt your judgment without you ever noticing. Biases that turn your money into a reflection of your moods instead of your principles. Most investors don't lose because they're uneducated. They lose because they're emotional. They buy high because of hope. They sell low because of fear. They switch strategies because of impatience. They ignore their plan because of ego. The calm investor does the opposite. The calm investor anticipates rather than reacts. The calm investor uses emotion as information, not instruction. When you think you're being logical, ask yourself, are you acting or are you reacting? Are you evaluating the market or responding to your anxiety? Are you building a long-term position or trying to silence a short-term fear? These questions reveal the truth. They expose the emotional fingerprints hidden beneath your decisions, because every emotional choice has a cost. Fear steals opportunities that would have built your future. Greed pushes you into risks you never planned for. Ego blinds you to reality, convincing you that your opinion is a weapon instead of a weakness. Impulse rushes you into moves that don't match your goals. These forces drain wealth silently, like a leak in a boat you never inspect. But awareness changes everything. Awareness pulls emotion out of the shadows and into the light. Awareness lets you see your fear before it becomes a decision. It lets you recognize your greed before it becomes a risk. It lets you notice your ego before it becomes a blind spot. Awareness is the first step toward mastery, because you cannot control what you refuse to confront. The calm investor is not emotionless. They are emotion aware. They see their feelings rise, but they do not obey them. They pause when others rush. They question when others assume. They observe when others react. This is not luck. This is trained inner discipline. It is the ability to stand in the storm without letting the storm inside you. Look at every investor who has failed. Their downfall was never a single bad trade. It was a pattern of emotional mistakes, tiny, repeated, unnoticed. Small moments where fear whispered louder than logic. Small moments where impatience drowned out strategy. Small moments where ego convinced them they were smarter than the market. The calm investor avoids these traps because they know the enemy is not volatility. The enemy is internal volatility. When you strip away the myth, what remains is a simple truth. Wealth follows clarity, not passion, not hype, not adrenaline. Clarity, and clarity only appears when the emotional fog lifts. When you stop pretending to be rational and start training yourself to become rational. When you replace emotional shortcuts with deliberate thinking. When you stop reacting to every fluctuation and start aligning every action with your long-term identity, you are not here to gamble. You are not here to chase. You are not here to mimic the crowd. You are here to build. You are here to think. You are here to become the calm investor who sees through noise instead of being moved by it. And the first step is simple. Admit the myth. Admit that emotion has shaped more of your financial life than you realize. Admit that you have reacted more than you've anticipated. Admit that you have been driven by fear more than by strategy. These admissions are not weakness. They are power. They give you the foundation to rebuild your approach from truth instead of illusion. Because once you see the emotional currents beneath your choices, you can rise above them. You can learn to pause, to question, to anticipate, to decide with clarity instead of chaos. This is the beginning of ironclad decision-making. Not rigid thinking, not cold detachment, but disciplined awareness. You are stepping into a new level of investing where emotional honesty becomes your greatest advantage, where clarity replaces confusion, where patience replaces panic, where anticipation replaces reaction. And as you move forward, you will see the shift inside yourself. You will feel your decisions becoming sharper. You are becoming stronger. This is the path of mastery, and it begins here with the courage to confront the myth and choose awareness over illusion. Chapter 2, Emotional Volatility, the Silent Tax on Your Wealth. Emotional volatility is the silent tax you never see, but always pay. It creeps into your decisions in small, invisible ways, pulling you out of positions too early, shoving you into trades too late, distorting your perception until every movement feels urgent. You think you're responding to the market, but you're really responding to yourself. And that hidden shift costs you more than you realize. Every time fear whispers that a dip is danger, you sell too soon. Every time greed tells you a rally will last forever, you buy too late. These emotional triggers drain your returns quietly, like a leak that never stops. You don't feel the loss in the moment, but it compounds against you over years. And that compounding is cruel. Most investors never notice the emotional tax because it hides inside logical excuses. You tell yourself you're being cautious, being smart, protecting your capital, but beneath those rational stories is panic dressed as strategy. You exit winners early to feel safe. You hold losers too long to feel right. Emotion manipulates your logic silently without you ever recognizing it fully. This tax doesn't show up on statements. It doesn't appear in your portfolio summary. It hides in the trades you almost made, the opportunities you abandoned, the gains you cut short. It hides in that tightness in your chest, that urgency in your mind, that pressure to do something even when doing nothing was wiser for your future self too. Emotional volatility punishes you twice. First when it pushes you into the wrong move, then again when it steals the confidence you need for the right one. You start doubting yourself, you hesitate, you chase, you repeat the same cycle with different tickers, different headlines, different outcomes. But the root cause never changes. Emotional decisions cost more than you realize. The calm investor understands this cost. They know the real battle is not against the market, but against the mind. They know volatility outside means nothing without volatility inside. They stay steady when prices swing. They stay focused when sentiment shifts. Their decisions flow from principles, not impulses. And because of that, their wealth grows cleaner and far more consistent. But you cannot reach that level without recognizing how emotions distort performance. Fear shrinks your time horizon. Greed inflates your expectations. Impulse compresses your patience. Ego blinds your reasoning. Every one of these forces alters your behavior, your risk tolerance, your conviction. And the market punishes emotional behavior every single time without mercy in its own quiet way, always relentlessly. You've paid this tax before. You've felt that sting of selling too early only to watch the price climb without you. You've felt the frustration of buying too late, chasing momentum that disappears the moment you enter. These wounds follow you. They shape your confidence. They influence your next choices. Emotion becomes a pattern, not an accident for many investors, but you are here to break that pattern. You are here to rise above the emotional fog that has clouded your decisions for years. You are learning to see your emotions before they take over, to notice the surge before it becomes a mistake. This awareness is your shield. This awareness is your advantage. This awareness is your evolution forward. Because once you see the emotional tax, you stop paying it. You begin waiting when others rush. You begin holding when others doubt. You begin trusting your rules more than your reactions. The emotional waves still come, but they no longer control your movement. You become steady in turbulence, disciplined in chaos, calm when others collapse all around you now. This shift is not luck. It is discipline. Discipline becomes a structure that emotion cannot penetrate. It becomes the guardrail that keeps you aligned with your long-term plan, even when every headline screams urgency. Discipline gives you predictability. It gives you clarity. It gives you the power to act from conviction instead of panic, from intention instead of impulse, always. When discipline enters, everything changes. You stop treating the market like a battlefield and start treating it like a landscape. You see patterns, not threats. You see opportunities, not traps. You hold your positions with confidence because your choices were born from logic, not adrenaline. Discipline turns chaos into clarity, and clarity turns uncertainty into strength for you every day. But remember this, emotion will always try to return. It will disguise itself as concern, as intuition, as caution. It will push you toward the old patterns that cost you so much. Your job is to see it before it settles, to pause before reacting, to breathe before acting. Recognition breaks the cycle before it begins in your mind now. And the more you recognize, the more you regain. You reclaim your time. You reclaim your patience. You reclaim your ability to think independently without being drowned by noise. Emotion becomes a signal, not a master. You begin shaping your decisions instead of being shaped by pressure. This is how discipline dethrones volatility and protects your future choices as well. So understand this truth. Emotion has been your opponent all along. It has drained your returns quietly, altered your judgment subtly, and dictated your pace completely. But now you see it clearly. Now you can prepare. Now you can counter. Discipline becomes your shield, your anchor, your edge. With discipline, the silent tax finally ends for you. Chapter 3: Slow Thinking in a Fast World. The world moves fast, but your mind doesn't have to follow its pace. Everywhere you look, speed is worshipped as if acceleration itself were intelligence. Markets swing in seconds, headlines shift in moments, and people scramble to keep up with movements they barely understand. But the calm investor knows a different truth. Clarity requires space, and space requires slowing the internal tempo, even while the external world accelerates. When you slow down, you stop reacting to motion and start responding to meaning. Deliberate presence wins. Most people never create that space. They live in mental overdrive, believing that faster thinking will save them from uncertainty. Yet the faster they think, the more they rush, and the more they rush, the less they actually see. They become frantic traders, chasing candles, refreshing screens, mistaking motion for insight. Their decisions shrink to the size of their stress. But the poised strategist operates differently. While others tighten, they loosen. While others sprint, they breathe. They expand awareness instead of compressing it into clarity again. Slow thinking is not the absence of thought. It is the elevation of thought. It is the ability to step back far enough that patterns become visible and noise loses its grip. When you slow the mind, you widen the gap between stimulus and response, and inside that gap, mastery grows. The frantic trader reacts instantly. The calm investor responds intentionally. The frantic trader fears missing out. The calm investor fears acting without understanding. Slow thinking transforms every decision from a guess into grounded strategy. To slow down in a fast world is to reclaim ownership of your choices. It is to reject the illusion that urgency equals opportunity. When you move slowly on the inside, you see variables others overlook: context, timing, structure, risk. You make decisions from your center instead of your nerves. The frantic trader is pulled by every fluctuation because their mind has no anchor. The poised strategist remains grounded because they think at their own pace, not the market's. That pace creates advantage for you now. Slow thinking protects you from emotional manipulation. Markets tempt you to rush, to chase, to act without clarity. News cycles pressure you to form opinions before the truth settles. Social feeds convince you that speed is survival. But when you slow internally, you stop being moved by manufactured urgency. You become the observer instead of the participant. You recognize when fear is artificially amplified and when greed is engineered. You realize that most noise is designed to provoke reaction, not promote understanding for you now. Slow thinking creates precision. When you take time to analyze instead of react, you find edges that impulsive minds never discover. You see the structure beneath price movements, the psychology beneath trends, the motives beneath narratives. You move with intention, not adrenaline. The frantic trader stabs in the dark. The poised strategist aims with clarity. Slow internal tempo turns every choice into a calculated step forward. What others call hesitation, you call preparation. What others call waiting, you call sharpening your advantage right here now. To think slowly is to resist the world's addiction to immediacy. Every headline shouts now. Every update demands attention. Every chart movement begs for reaction. But the calm investor understands that real opportunity rarely lives in urgency. Real opportunity lives in clarity. And clarity grows only when the mind is unhurried. Slow thinking turns the market from chaos into a landscape you can navigate. It transforms noise into data, data into insight, insight into conviction that cannot be shaken by speed or empty emotion again. Slow thinking is quiet strength. It is the refusal to let urgency define you. It is the discipline to wait for confirmation instead of chasing anticipation. It is the courage to pause while others panic. The frantic trader sees motion and assumes meaning. The poised strategist sees meaning only after removing emotion. When you slow your internal world, you begin hearing yourself again. Your judgment sharpens. Your patience strengthens. Your decisions align with your long-term identity rather than short-term discomfort in your daily practice ahead. Slow thinking is not weakness. It is authority over your own mind. It is the deliberate choice to think at a pace that reveals truth instead of reacting at a pace that conceals it. The world rewards speed temporarily, but it rewards clarity permanently. When you slow down, you see the traps set for frantic minds. You see the opportunities hiding beneath fear. You see the patterns others overlook because they are too busy chasing movement. Slow thinking becomes your advantage in a fast world. Slow thinking is your anchor in the age of acceleration. It keeps you centered while the world fractures itself chasing speed. It gives you the patience to see truth where others see threat, and the discipline to act with intention when others act with impulse. In slowing down, you rise above the noise that blinds reactive minds. You reclaim your power to choose, to observe, to decide. And in that reclaimed space, you find the strategist within, the one who thrives by moving deliberately each day. Chapter 4: The Discipline of Boring Wealth. Wealth is not built in moments of excitement. It is built in the quiet places, in the steady routines, in the habits that look boring to anyone who has not yet tasted long-term success. But your ego doesn't want boring. Your ego wants thrill, urgency, speed, drama, action. It wants the rush of a sudden win, the adrenaline of a risky move, the feeling of being in the game. Yet the truth is simple and confronting. The ego destroys what wealth creates. The calm investor learns to silence that ego and embrace what actually works. Consistency, patience, simplicity. Boring wealth is disciplined wealth. It grows through small, repeated actions that compound far beyond what excitement ever could. Consistent contributions, simple strategies executed repeatedly, long-term horizons that stretch past the noise of the moment. These practices do not make good headlines, but they make powerful results. They do not look impressive in the short term, but they become undeniable in the long term. Boring wealth is the quiet engine that drives financial freedom. Most people never build wealth because they're addicted to stimulation. They want the market to feel thrilling. They want every move to feel significant. They want to be entertained more than they want to be enriched. This addiction forces them to chase complexity, jump between strategies, react to trends, and trust their impulses more than their plans. They move fast, but they go nowhere. They feel active, but they remain stuck. The ego wants excitement, wealth wants discipline. The discipline of boring wealth requires you to detach from that inner craving for novelty. It demands that you choose stability over stimulation. You make contributions even when you don't feel like it. You follow your plan even when the market tempts you to deviate. You ignore the noise that pushes you toward urgency, and you stick to the quiet process that aligns with your future self. This is not glamorous work. It's grounded work. It's mature work. And it's the work that builds something real. Boring wealth feels unnatural at first because the world rewards spectacle. Everyone wants to show off a big win. Nobody wants to celebrate a year of consistent, uneventful deposits. Everyone loves the idea of doubling their money overnight. Nobody wants to talk about doubling it through patience, discipline, and time. But the reality is unshakable. The loud investor burns out. The boring investor builds up. The loud investor trades from emotion. The boring investor operates from structure. Excitement fades. Discipline compounds. The calm investor sees boredom not as a weakness, but as a superpower. Boredom means your system is working. Boredom means you've removed chaos. Boredom means you've replaced uncertainty with structure. When your investing feels boring, it means you've crossed into the realm of sustainable success. You've built something stable, and stability is the foundation upon which all long-term wealth is built. Think of the greatest investors in history. None of them built their legacy on excitement. They built systems. They built patience. They built conviction that wasn't shaken by daily noise. They played the long game in a world obsessed with short-term wins. They allowed compounding to do what compounding does best: turn time into multiplication. That is the true power of boring wealth. Time works for you instead of against you. The frantic investor fears boredom because boredom feels like inaction. The calm investor embraces it because boredom means freedom. Freedom from impulsive moves. Freedom from emotional swings. Freedom from constantly having to decide what to do next. When you commit to a simple, consistent strategy, you free your mind to focus on life, not on every fluctuation the market throws your way. Wealth becomes the natural byproduct of discipline, not the obsession of anxiety. The challenge is not understanding boring wealth. The challenge is committing to it, committing to consistency even when nothing exciting happens, committing to patience even when the market tries to provoke you, committing to long-term thinking even when the world rewards short-term noise. This commitment is what separates those who hope from those who build, those who react from those who rise. Your ego will resist this path. It will want you to chase trends, copy others, risk everything, or change strategies when the results aren't immediate. It will push you toward complexity because complexity feels sophisticated. But sophistication doesn't build wealth. Simplicity does. Your ego wants drama, your wealth wants discipline. And every time you choose discipline over excitement, you weaken the ego's grip. Boring wealth is self-respect in financial form. It shows that you trust yourself enough to stay consistent. It shows that you believe in your future more than your impulses. It shows that you prioritize results over entertainment. Every contribution you make, every month you stay disciplined. Every time you choose patience, you reinforce the identity of someone who builds, someone who grows, someone who finishes the long game. This chapter is your wake-up call. Excitement is the enemy of mastery. The more thrilling your decisions feel, the less grounded they are. The calmer your process becomes, the more powerful your outcomes grow. Embrace boredom, seek it, honor it, because in the discipline of boring wealth, you are becoming the kind of person who wins quietly, consistently, and permanently. And from here, your journey toward unshakable financial mastery continues. Chapter 5, Identity, Becoming the Calm Investor. Identity is the quiet engine behind every decision you make. Before you choose, before you act, before you commit, there's a deeper truth shaping everything: who you believe you are. Most people try to change their behavior without ever changing their identity. And that is why the change never lasts. Behavior is surface. Identity is foundation. When you shift the foundation, every decision becomes different. Every habit becomes different. Every instinct becomes different. And this chapter is where you begin that shift. Most investors think they are making choices from logic, but they are really making choices from identity. If you believe you're a worrier, you will naturally react with fear. If you believe you're inconsistent, you will naturally sabotage your own routines. If you believe you're unlucky, you will naturally look for exits before opportunities. These behaviors aren't random. They flow from who you think you are. Identity creates behavior, not the other way around. The reactive identity is the identity most people carry without realizing it. It is the identity of someone who feels smaller than the market, who feels threatened by uncertainty, who sees volatility as danger instead of data. The reactive identity is the worrier, the person who panics at the first dip, doubts at the first challenge, and hesitates at the first opportunity. This identity is built from noise, from old fear, from emotional habits that were never questioned. And as long as you remain this person, your decisions will always reflect that fear. But there is another identity available to you: the calm investor. This identity does not react. It responds. It does not panic. It observes. It does not chase. It evaluates. The calm investor carries a grounded presence that cannot be shaken by headlines or pressured by urgency. This identity acts from principle, not impulse. It acts from clarity, not emotion. And the moment you decide to become this person, everything in your investing life begins to shift. The calm investor is not defined by perfect knowledge, but by perfect posture. They approach the market with the same internal steadiness, regardless of external movement. They hold themselves with deliberate patience. They commit to their rules even when their emotions try to escape those rules. They trust their system more than their impulses. And this identity gives them consistency that the reactive identity could never create. Becoming the calm investor begins before you feel ready. It begins with embodiment. acting like the calm investor before you fully believe you are one. Identity grows from repetition, not from certainty. You practice the behavior until the behavior becomes natural. You show up with intention until intention becomes instinct. You hold steady in moments of stress until steadiness becomes automatic. You choose to be the calm investor long before the world recognizes you as one. This transformation is internal long before it is external. You start by shifting how you speak to yourself. Instead of saying, "I hope I stay calm," you say, "I am the kind of person who stays calm." Instead of saying, "I'll try to be patient," you say, "I am patient." Instead of saying, "I'll try not to panic," you say, "I do not panic." These declarations are not delusion. They are construction. You are building the identity that will shape your decisions. You are defining yourself before the world defines you. Identity is built through evidence, and every action becomes evidence. Every patient decision reinforces the calm investor. Every disciplined move strengthens the calm investor. Every moment you choose clarity over fear becomes another brick in this foundation. And soon, this identity no longer feels like an aspiration. It feels like home. You wake up steady. You operate grounded. You see volatility without losing balance. You trust yourself in ways you never trusted yourself before. The calm investor identity also protects you from emotional chaos. When you identify yourself as calm, your mind filters the world differently. You interpret stress as a signal to slow down, not speed up. You interpret dips as opportunities, not threats. You interpret uncertainty as space to think, not pressure to react. Identity rewires perception, and perception rewires behavior. This is how transformation becomes natural instead of forced. The power of identity is that it governs your decisions even when your emotions fluctuate. Emotions come and go, but identity remains stable. Emotions push you toward reacting, but identity pulls you toward responding. Emotions may trigger doubt, but identity restores direction. This stability is what separates the calm investor from everyone else. They do not need perfect conditions to perform well. They need only to return to who they have chosen to become. You must understand something deeply. Becoming the calm investor is not a moment. It is a daily commitment. You recommit every morning when you open the market. You recommit every time fear tries to influence you. You recommit every time your ego wants excitement. You recommit every time uncertainty rises. This daily commitment is what transforms identity from a choice into a way of being. The calm investor is forged through repetition, intention, and self-ownership. You become this person by practicing discipline when you want stimulation. You become this person by choosing clarity when you crave reaction. You become this person by anchoring yourself when the world tries to pull you. And the more you live as this identity, the more natural it becomes, until the reactive identity no longer fits you at all. This chapter ends with a simple truth. Your greatest advantage is not strategy, it is identity. When you decide who you are, your decisions follow. When you decide who you are, your habits align. When you decide who you are, the market no longer controls your internal world. Today you begin the journey of becoming the calm investor. Not someday, not eventually, but now. Your identity shifts here. Your mastery begins here. Chapter 6, Designing a System Stronger Than Emotion. Emotion is powerful, but systems are stronger. Emotion fluctuates with every headline. Every market ripple, every whisper of uncertainty. Systems do not. Systems are stable, predictable, repeatable. They operate even when your confidence breaks, even when your discipline wavers, even when your nerves tighten. This chapter is where you learn to elevate yourself beyond emotional decision-making and into structured, strategic execution. The way calm investors survive storms that destroy reactive minds. Most people live in an emotion-driven world. They buy because they feel hopeful, sell because they feel scared, change strategies because they feel impatient. Their portfolios mirror their moods. Their outcomes reflect their impulses. They think they are making rational choices, but really their decisions follow whatever feeling is loudest at the moment. This emotional instability sabotages consistency. It turns potential into chaos. It turns intelligence into unpredictability. A system-driven world is different. A system doesn't care about excitement. A system doesn't panic. A system doesn't get seduced by hype or shaken by fear. A system is a set of rules that replace emotional impulses. It tells you what to do when your mind becomes cloudy. It gives you structure when uncertainty rises. It forces you to think ahead so you're not reacting blindly in the moment. A system is discipline made visible. Designing a system stronger than emotion begins with one truth. Emotion is temporary, but structure endures. When your system is clear, you follow it even when your emotions disagree. You buy only when your conditions are met. You sell only when your rules say sell. You contribute consistently because your plan requires it. This removes decision-making from the heat of the moment and places it into the clarity of design. You are choosing logic over urgency again. A powerful system starts with defining your identity. You are now the calm investor. Your system must reflect that identity. Your rules must reinforce it. Your guardrails must protect it. When you design your processes from identity, your system becomes an extension of who you are becoming. It strengthens your behavior instead of fighting it. And this alignment brings a level of consistency emotion can never achieve. Systems thinking isn't about complexity, it's about reliability. The world tempts you to build complicated strategies to feel smart, but complexity is fragile. Simplicity is durable. The strongest systems are simple enough to follow in moments of pressure. Automate contributions, predetermine allocations, define entry points and exit points. Decide your time horizons before the market tests them. Simplicity protects you when emotion attacks. Guardrails are essential. Guardrails prevent chaos by limiting the damage of reactive choices. Set a maximum position size so excitement can't push you to overexpose. Set a minimum holding period so fear can't force early exit. Set mandatory waiting periods before acting so impulse has time to dissolve. Guardrails are not restrictions, they are freedoms. They free you from your own emotional weakness. Automation is the calm investor's secret weapon. Automation removes the need for willpower. It removes the temptation to second guess. Automating contributions, rebalancing schedules, and savings transfers means your future self is protected from your emotional present. The more automated your system becomes, the less vulnerable you are to panic, thrill, or doubt. Automation is the shield that emotion cannot penetrate. Structure liberates. People think structure is limiting, but the opposite is true. Structure frees your mind from constant uncertainty. Structure gives you clarity. stability, and confidence. When your system is solid, you don't have to ask, "What should I do?" You already know. You simply execute. This reduces stress. It eliminates guesswork. It turns investing from a battlefield into a process, and process always beats impulse. Look at the investors who last. They do not rely on emotional brilliance. They rely on systems. They use rules to navigate chaos, frameworks to guide action, and structure to maintain clarity. They win not because they feel confident, but because their system keeps them consistent. They know confidence is unreliable. They know emotion is unstable. They trust their structure because their structure is stronger than they are in moments of weakness. A system protects you from your future self. There will be days when fear feels like rational caution. There will be days when greed feels like opportunity. There will be days when impatience feels like urgency. Without a system, you will justify emotional impulses as logical decisions. With a system, you see those impulses for what they are, temporary distortions. The system keeps you aligned with your long-term plan. The calm investor designs systems that reflect calm. This means slow, deliberate evaluation before action. This means predetermined steps instead of spontaneous decisions. This means clarity over complexity, structure over drama, discipline over excitement. Your system becomes a mirror of your new identity, reinforcing the habits and behaviors that protect your future wealth. Identity builds the system sustains the identity. By building a system stronger than emotion, you step into a new level of professionalism. You stop thinking like a frantic trader and start operating like a strategist. You stop being moved by short-term instability and start being guided by long-term intentionality. Every rule you create becomes a promise to your future self. Every automated step becomes a defense against emotional sabotage. Every guardrail becomes a boundary that protects your clarity. And now the transition begins. You understand who you must become. You understand that identity shapes decisions. The next step is alignment. You build systems that reinforce the calm investor, protect the calm investor, and elevate the calm investor. You are not trying to act calm. You are designing a life where calm action becomes inevitable. Structure becomes your edge. Logic becomes your compass. Emotion becomes powerless. Chapter 7. Information. Diet consuming data without drowning in it. You live in a world that floods you with information the moment you open your eyes. Every notification, every chart, every headline demands your attention. There is always something new happening, something urgent, something loud. But the truth is simple. The overload is not helping you think. It is drowning you. It is overwhelming your judgment. It is turning clarity into confusion and confidence into hesitation. Most investors do not fail from lack of information. They fail from too much of it. Information overload creates paralysis. When you consume everything, you understand nothing. Your mind becomes clogged with conflicting signals. One source says buy, another says sell, a third says wait. You start second-guessing yourself. You hesitate. You panic. You confuse noise for knowledge and urgency for importance. The more you consume, the less you see. The more you read, the less you understand. You become reactive instead of intentional, scattered instead of focused, overwhelmed instead of empowered. Most people mistake information consumption for intelligence. They believe that the more they know, the better their decisions will become. But knowledge is only useful when it is processed, filtered, and applied. Information without clarity is chaos. Data without structure is noise. And when your mind is flooded with excess input, your decisions come from confusion rather than conviction. The calm investor knows this. They understand that consuming less helps them think more. They know that clarity requires space, not saturation. Your mind is a limited system. It cannot hold infinite signals. It cannot analyze endless variables. It cannot stay sharp when overloaded. Just like your body needs a clean diet to stay healthy, your mind needs a clean information diet to stay strong. If you feed it garbage, it weakens. If you feed it too much, it collapses. But if you feed it intentionally, it becomes powerful. This chapter is where you learn to curate your inputs and take back control of your mental environment. The first step is acknowledging the cost of overconsumption. Every unnecessary piece of information steals mental bandwidth. Every headline you check out of habit steals clarity. Every feed you scroll steals focus. This constant drip of data keeps your mind in a state of low-level agitation, making it impossible to think calmly or strategically. You become addicted to updates, convinced that missing something will put you at risk. But this addiction blinds you. It traps you in a cycle of checking, scrolling, reacting, a cycle that destroys long-term thinking. The calm investor breaks this cycle by choosing intentional consumption over endless absorption. When you control your inputs, you control your mind. And when you control your mind, you control your decisions. The calm investor is selective. They do not follow every source. They do not chase every update. They do not let the world's urgency dictate their attention. They choose a small set of reliable inputs and ignore the rest. Their information diet is clean, minimal, structured. Minimalism in information is not deprivation, it is strength. It sharpens your perception. It frees your mind from clutter. It allows you to identify the few signals that truly matter. When you reduce noise, you heighten awareness. When you reduce clutter, you elevate clarity. When you reduce consumption, you increase understanding. The calm investor uses information the way a master chef uses ingredients, carefully, intentionally, and in precise amounts that enhance the result rather than overwhelm it. To create a powerful information diet, begin by eliminating everything that does not serve your strategy. Unfollow sources that provoke fear or excitement. Remove apps that distract. Turn off notifications that interrupt your thinking. Replace constant checking with scheduled review. Choose depth over speed. Choose analysis over consumption. Choose quality over quantity. Information is not your enemy. Excess is. Next, structure the information you do keep. Define when you analyze. Define what you monitor. Define how often you review positions. Structure removes temptation. Structure removes emotion. Structure prevents you from chasing every headline and second-guessing every decision. When your information intake is scheduled and intentional, your mind becomes calm. Your decisions become consistent. Your strategy becomes stable. The calm investor also practices mental fasting. They take breaks from markets, breaks from news, breaks from consuming anything. These breaks reset the mind. They clear the mental clutter. They allow insights to rise naturally rather than be drowned by constant noise. In silence, patterns emerge. In stillness, understanding deepens. In rest, clarity strengthens. Mental fasting is not avoidance. It is optimization. Information diet is not just about reducing what you consume. It is about reclaiming authority over what enters your mind. It is about refusing to let algorithms decide your focus. It is about refusing to let headlines dictate your emotions. It is about refusing to be manipulated by urgency, fear, and hype. When you take control of your inputs, you take control of your emotional stability. And emotional stability is the foundation of every great investor. Information overload leads to impulsiveness, but controlled information leads to neutrality. When you stop drowning in data, you stop reacting from panic. When you stop chasing every update, you stop making decisions from fear. When you filter your inputs, you filter your emotions. This is how the calm investor stays grounded while others get pulled by every market wave. This is how they maintain clarity while others spiral into confusion. You are no longer someone who consumes everything. You are someone who chooses wisely. You are no longer someone who reacts to noise. You are someone who responds to truth. By designing an intentional information diet, you protect your mind from chaos and prepare it for neutrality. And now that your inputs are controlled, you are ready for the next evolution, mastering emotional neutrality itself. Chapter 8: The Neutral Mind, Emotionless Execution. Neutrality is the state where clarity lives. It is the stillness beneath the surface, the place inside you untouched by fear, untouched by greed, untouched by the noise that sends most people spiraling. Wealth does not grow in emotional storms. Wealth grows in calm seas, in measured decisions, in quiet conviction. The neutral mind is not cold or detached from reality. It is detached from distortion. It sees what is, not what it fears. It acts from truth, not turbulence. And in this chapter, you learn how to build that unshakable internal ground. Emotions are natural, but emotional decisions are costly. When the market rises, your mind inflates the future. When it falls, your mind collapses into fear. These swings make you feel alive, but they also make you vulnerable. The emotional investor reacts to every shift, every headline, every sudden move. They chase highs, they flee lows, and they mistake intensity for insight. But the calm investor understands something deeper. Emotion is information, not instruction. You feel it, acknowledge it, then act independent of it. That separation is power. Neutrality does not mean suppression. It means observation. It means watching your fear without becoming it. It means noticing your greed without feeding it. It means hearing your doubts without obeying them. Imagine making decisions as if you were managing someone else's money. No attachment, no ego, no panic. You see risk more clearly. You see opportunity more cleanly. You act with steady logic because your identity is not wrapped around the outcome. This is detachment, and detachment frees you from the traps emotion tries to set. In neutrality, timing becomes clearer. You no longer rush because the market moves. You no longer hesitate because uncertainty rises. You operate from your rules, your strategy, your structure. The emotional investor thinks neutrality is passive, but neutrality is active clarity. It is choosing logic over impulse again and again. It is refusing to let temporary feelings shape permanent consequences. Your emotions may flare, but your actions remain aligned with long-term conviction. That is mastery. The neutral mind sees volatility differently. To the emotional investor, volatility feels personal, an attack, a threat, a judgment. But to the calm investor, volatility simply is a movement to analyze, not a danger to avoid, a shift to understand, not a signal to panic. Neutrality removes meaning where meaning does not belong. A drop is not a failure. A rise is not a promise. Both are data points, nothing more. When you stop adding emotional weight to neutral events, you begin thinking like a strategist instead of a survivor. Neutrality also protects you from ego. Ego wants to be right. Neutrality wants to be effective. Ego wants to predict. Neutrality wants to adapt. Ego clings to past decisions even when evidence changes. Neutrality updates without hesitation. Ego panics when challenged. Neutrality remains steady. When you let go of the need to be right, you unlock the ability to make the best choice in every moment. You stop defending old decisions and start improving new ones. The neutral mind creates space, space to think, space to breathe, space to evaluate without urgency. Most emotional decisions come from compression. Too much information, too much pressure, too much noise. Neutrality expands your inner world. It gives you a buffer between stimulus and response. In that buffer, your best reasoning emerges. In that buffer, your discipline activates. In that buffer, you reclaim control over choices that once felt automatic. Neutrality is the quiet pause that saves you from costly reactions. And neutrality is the gateway to long-term thinking. You cannot think decades ahead when you are emotionally attached to minutes. You cannot see the arc of your future when you are caught in the waves of the present. But when your mind becomes neutral, calm, steady, consistent, you finally see beyond the storm. You see trends, not tremors. You see potential, not panic. You begin to understand that the market does not reward emotion, it rewards patience, clarity, and neutrality. Now that your mind can separate truth from feeling, you are ready to step fully into long-term vision. Chapter 9, Long-Term Vision, Seeing Beyond the Storm. Long-term vision is the antidote to panic. It is the mental horizon that stretches far beyond the noise, far beyond the fluctuations, far beyond the storms that shake emotional minds. When you learn to extend your view, you stop reacting to what is temporary and start building toward what is permanent. The short term is where fear lives. The long term is where mastery begins. And in this chapter, you widen your perspective until the storms that once controlled you shrink into small, passing waves. Most investors live trapped in the immediacy of the moment. They stare at daily charts, obsess over hourly movements, and panic at every dip as if it were the end of their future. This narrow view suffocates clarity. When you zoom in too close, everything looks dramatic. Every drop feels catastrophic. Every rise feels like a promise. But the truth is simple. Nothing makes sense when viewed too closely. A storm looks endless when you're standing inside it, but from above, it is a passing cloud. Long-term vision allows you to rise above. It lifts you out of the chaos and gives you perspective that reactive minds never experience. When you think in years, daily fluctuations lose their grip. When you think in decades, volatility becomes invisible. Fear cannot survive in a mind focused far ahead. Fear thrives only in immediacy. It feeds on urgency, on short-term discomfort, on the illusion that what's happening now is all that matters. But the calm investor knows better. They zoom out. They see the bigger arc. A long-term vision dissolves panic because it reminds you that wealth is built from consistency, not perfection. Every great investor you admire built their fortune through time, patience, and discipline, not through flawless timing, not through constant reaction, but through the steady commitment to a future bigger than the moment they were in. Long-term thinking protects you from the emotional storms that destroy short-term thinkers. It gives you the ability to stay steady when others break. When you zoom out, you stop asking, "What is happening right now?" and start asking, "What does this mean over years?" A dip becomes a discount, a rally becomes data, a correction becomes an opportunity, volatility becomes normal instead of terrifying. The storm may still surround you, but your mind no longer believes it defines your future. Long-term vision is not just perspective, it is power. It is the ability to stay calm in conditions that make others panic. Fear collapses your timeline. It forces you to think small, act quickly, and doubt constantly. But mastery expands your timeline. When your horizon stretches outward, your thinking becomes clearer. Your emotions become quieter. You stop chasing what is urgent and start focusing on what is meaningful. Long-term vision turns your decisions from reactive moves into strategic steps. You no longer trade from fear, you build from conviction. To develop long-term vision, you must practice zooming out mentally and emotionally. This begins with recognizing that your future is shaped by thousands of small decisions, not a few dramatic ones. Wealth grows through compounding, and compounding thrives in time, not tension. When you think long-term, every moment of patience becomes an investment. Every decision aligned with your long-term plan becomes a brick in your financial foundation. Your identity as the calm investor strengthens through this perspective. You no longer feel the need to respond to every wave because you understand that waves are part of the ocean. You no longer need certainty to move forward because you understand that uncertainty is part of the journey. You begin to trust the process more than the moment. You begin to trust time more than timing. This is the psychology that separates those who build wealth from those who chase it. Long-term vision also brings emotional freedom. When you stop needing instant results, you stop feeling anxious every time the market moves against you. You stop measuring your progress in days and start measuring it in years. You stop judging your success by temporary outcomes and start judging it by your discipline, your consistency, and your alignment with your future self. The long term frees you from the emotional burden of chasing short-term wins. Seeing beyond the storm allows you to stay grounded when others panic. The market will rise and fall. Sentiment will shift. Fear will surge. Greed will spread. But your vision stays steady because you know that long-term trends matter far more than short-term noise. You know that wealth is built from directional commitment, not emotional reaction. You know that storms pass, patterns remain, and time rewards those who can wait. Long-term vision is not just a mindset, it is a strategy. It influences how you allocate, how you contribute, how you evaluate opportunities, and how you maintain discipline. It makes you a builder instead of a gambler, a strategist instead of a follower, a creator instead of a reactor. And the more you stretch your horizon, the more your decisions begin to reflect wisdom instead of impulse. When you see far enough ahead, you become unshakable. Fear loses influence. Greed loses control. Noise loses meaning. The storms that rattled you before now feel like background weather. Your focus shifts from surviving the moment to building the future. And this shift changes everything. It changes how you think, how you act, how you commit. It transforms you from someone tossed by waves into someone guided by direction. And as this chapter closes, your perspective transforms once again. You see now that long-term vision is the lens through which calm investors operate every day. It is the compass that keeps them aligned, the anchor that holds them steady, the strength that keeps them patient. And now that your horizon is set, you are ready to master the next element of calm investing, turning patience itself into your greatest weapon. Chapter 10: The Weapon of Patience. Patience is not passive. Patience is power in its purest form. It is the discipline to hold steady when everything around you pushes for urgency. It is the strength to wait with intention while others rush into mistakes. It is the unseen force that multiplies returns, protects your capital, and shapes you into an investor capable of surviving storms that destroy impulsive minds. Patience is not the absence of action. It is the mastery of timing. Most people misunderstand patience. They think it means doing nothing. They think it means being slow, weak, or indecisive. But real patience is decisive. Real patience is controlled. Real patience is rooted in clarity. You are not waiting because you're scared to act. You're waiting because you refuse to act without alignment. You understand that time is not your enemy. Time is your ally. And when you wield patience correctly, time begins to work for you instead of against you. Impatience destroys more wealth than bad strategies ever will. Impatience pushes you to chase every rally, exit every dip, switch strategies when results don't appear instantly. Impatience convinces you that progress must be visible at all times, even though the greatest progress happens silently beneath the surface. Impatience turns potential gains into losses and smart ideas into emotional regrets. The impatient investor cannot hold long enough for compounding to work. They cannot trust their system long enough for consistency to form. They live in reaction instead of intention. Patience does the opposite. Patience protects your capital by preventing reckless moves. Patience lets your strategy unfold without interference. Patience gives your positions time to breathe, grow, and mature. When you practice patience, you are practicing financial self-respect. You are proving to yourself that you do not need instant validation to believe in your plan. You do not need constant stimulation to stay committed. You are grounded enough to let time do its work. In the long term, patience compounds, not just your money, but your confidence. Every time you stay disciplined instead of reacting, you reinforce your identity as the calm investor. Every time you wait for confirmation instead of chasing excitement, you strengthen your internal stability. Every time you choose intention over impulse, you build a mindset capable of long-term success. Patience becomes a cycle that feeds itself. The more patient you are, the more confident you become. The more confident you become, the easier patience becomes. Patience is a form of intelligence. It separates those who understand the process from those who only understand the moment. It separates those who build from those who gamble. It separates the strategists from the chasers. When you cultivate patience, you elevate yourself above the emotional reactions that trap ordinary investors. You stop being pulled by every fluctuation because you understand that fluctuations are temporary. You stop doubting your plan because you understand that real results require time. But patience is not just mental, it is strategic. It influences how you structure your entries, how you manage your exits, how you protect your risk. When you are patient, you don't buy because the market tempts you. You buy because conditions align. You don't exit because of fear. You exit because the rules say it's time. You don't force trades. You wait for opportunities that match your criteria. This precision turns patience into a weapon, not a weakness. Patience also guards your emotional neutrality. When you are patient, you don't feel the need to react to every piece of news. You don't feel pressure to trade daily. You don't let other people's urgency become your own. You create a mental gap between information and action, allowing clarity to settle before decisions are made. This emotional buffer is priceless. It keeps you steady while others panic. It keeps you objective while others become clouded by adrenaline. The calm investor knows that patience is not waiting blindly. It is waiting intentionally. It is holding steady with awareness. It is monitoring without meddling. It is trusting the process without disengaging from reality. You remain alert, not anxious. You remain prepared, not pressured. You remain strategic, not stagnant. Patience allows you to see the full landscape instead of reacting to isolated moments. It opens space for long-term thinking, long-term positioning, and long-term conviction. Impatience is loud. Patience is quiet. Impatience demands action. Patience demands wisdom. Impatience collapses under uncertainty. Patience thrives in uncertainty. When you embrace patience, you become dangerous in the best way possible. Dangerous because you cannot be rushed. You cannot be manipulated. You cannot be moved by noise. You act only when the moment is right, and when you act with precision. The greatest investors understand this truth deeply. Their brilliance is not found in constant activity, but in consistent restraint. They wait for the right setups. They avoid the traps disguised as opportunities. They know that saying no is often more powerful than saying yes. Their patience sharpens their edge because they enter fewer trades, but better ones. They value quality over quantity, depth over speed, alignment over excitement. Patience also gives your investments the one resource they absolutely need: time. Compounding does not reward the restless, it rewards the committed, it rewards the steady, it rewards the investor who can hold, endure, and trust. Every year you stay aligned with your long-term plan, compounding accelerates. What begins slowly eventually becomes unstoppable, but only if you stay patient long enough to let that acceleration unfold. As you adopt patience as a weapon, you shift your identity again. You become someone who cannot be rushed out of opportunity. You become someone who knows how to wait without fear. You become someone who moves with intention instead of impulse. And each patient decision builds a stronger version of you, one capable of navigating uncertainty without losing direction. And now that patience is anchored inside you, the next step is clear: knowing when to act, because patience without execution is stagnation. But patience paired with precise strategic action is mastery. The calm investor waits with strength and strikes with clarity. Chapter 11. Judgment over predictions. Prediction is the illusion that seduces every emotional investor. It promises certainty in an uncertain world. It whispers that if you just analyze enough, study enough, anticipate enough, you can know the future. But prediction is fantasy. Prediction is ego disguised as insight. And ego is the fastest path to financial ruin. The calm investor doesn't try to predict the future. They prepare for it. They do not cling to a single outcome. They evaluate multiple possibilities. They do not gamble on guesses. They make decisions based on judgment. Judgment is the opposite of prediction. Prediction says, I know what will happen. Judgment says, I know how to respond to whatever happens. Prediction locks you into one vision. Judgment opens you to many paths. Prediction blinds you with false confidence. Judgment sharpens you with awareness. When you rely on prediction, you panic every time the world deviates from your expectations. But when you rely on judgment, you adapt. You shift. You adjust without losing control. Judgment is flexibility built on clarity. The myth of prediction survives because it feeds the ego. The ego wants to be right. The ego wants to feel special. It wants to believe that it sees something others don't. This desire for superiority pushes investors toward bold forecasts, dramatic bets, and all-or-nothing thinking. But every prediction carries a hidden cost. Once you commit to a single outcome, you become emotionally attached to it, and emotion destroys objectivity. When the market contradicts your prediction, you don't change your mind. You defend your ego. Judgment frees you from this trap. Judgment accepts uncertainty. It studies the landscape without pretending the landscape must follow a script. Judgment evaluates probabilities instead of fantasies. It asks questions instead of making declarations. What are the likely outcomes? What risks accompany each one? What signals matter most? What is the environment telling me? Which edge is real and which is imagined? This mindset positions you to win even when unpredictability rises. Calm investors understand that mastery is not about knowing the future. It is about knowing yourself, your system, and your constraints. Constraints matter more than predictions. Constraints determine how much you risk, how long you hold, how you protect your capital. When you understand constraints, you stop fighting the market and start flowing with it. You stop trying to bend reality to your will and start working within the environment you are given. This is professional thinking. The emotional investor hates constraints because constraints feel limiting. They want unlimited upside, unlimited action, unlimited certainty. But unlimited thinking leads to unlimited mistakes. The calm investor embraces constraints because constraints create discipline. They narrow your focus. They sharpen your decisions. They protect you from reckless moves. Judgment thrives within the boundaries you set because boundaries reduce emotional interference. When you abandon prediction, you detach from perfection. You stop needing your model to be right. You stop needing your thesis to be flawless. You stop needing every decision to validate your intelligence. This detachment makes you stronger. It removes pressure. It lets you see the market with clear eyes instead of tinted ones. You no longer search for evidence that proves you right. You search for evidence that improves your understanding. That shift is everything. Judgment is rooted in probability. Markets are not certainties, they are distributions. They move through cycles, fluctuations, and behavioral patterns. When you think in probabilities, you stop expecting one outcome and start preparing for several. You structure your decisions around ranges, contingencies, and scenarios instead of predictions. This makes you adaptable, it makes you resilient, it makes you calm. Judgment also requires humility. Humility is not weakness. Humility is awareness. It is the awareness that the market is bigger than you, that randomness exists, that noise exists, that you can be wrong even when your reasoning is sound. Humility keeps you open-minded. It prevents tunnel vision. It protects you from doubling down on bad ideas. In judgment, humility is your ally because it keeps you from confusing confidence with accuracy. When you operate from judgment, your decisions become cleaner. You weigh the environment, you weigh your strategy, you weigh the risk. You act based on alignment rather than emotion. You know when to pause. You know when to adjust. You know when to hold your ground. It is not about knowing everything. It is about understanding what matters and acting with clarity. The calm investor uses judgment to manage risk, not eliminate it. Prediction pretends risk doesn't exist. Judgment respects risk enough to plan for it. You place guardrails around your decisions. You define your maximum exposure. You define your exit conditions. You define your allocation rules. Judgment turns uncertainty into something navigable instead of something terrifying. Judgment reduces anxiety because judgment does not demand certainty. You stop trying to force the market to fit a narrative. You stop needing the future to unfold a specific way. You stop tying your emotional stability to outcomes you cannot control. When you rely on judgment, you realize that your job is not to predict. Your job is to position yourself wisely. And when you position wisely, you can handle whatever comes. Prediction is ego. Judgment is mastery. Prediction is emotional. Judgment is rational. Prediction collapses under pressure. Judgment adapts under pressure. And when you adopt judgment as your North Star, you begin to walk the path of resilient investing. The path where strength is not measured by being right, but by staying grounded when everything is uncertain. And now that judgment is anchored within you, the next step becomes natural. Because judgment alone is not enough. You need the ability to withstand the emotional storms that come with uncertainty. You need resilience. Judgment sets the stage. Resilience brings it to life. Chapter 12. Staying rational when others break. Rationality is easy when the world is calm. Anyone can think clearly when prices rise, when news is quiet, when everything feels predictable. But mastery isn't revealed in calm markets. It's revealed in chaos. It's revealed in downturns, panics, bubbles, crashes, and the moments when the crowd loses its mind. This chapter is about resilience, the ability to stay grounded when others break, to stay disciplined when others spiral, to stay rational when fear infects everything. Because the calm investor does not crumble in crisis. The calm investor becomes strongest in it. Most people underestimate how psychological investing truly is. They imagine it's about charts and numbers, strategies and analysis. But the real battleground is the mind. Every market cycle tests your emotions more than your intelligence. When prices fall fast, the mind screams for escape. When prices rise too quickly, the mind screams for entry. When the news turns dark, your instincts turn defensive. When the crowd panics, your biology pushes you to join them. These pressures are not imaginary. They are primal. And unless you build resilience, they will control you. The crowd breaks because the crowd has no anchor. They let headlines dictate their confidence. They let volatility dictate their decisions. They let group emotion override personal logic. They abandon their strategy to chase safety or chase hype. When the market shakes, their conviction collapses because it was never built on anything stable. They weren't thinking long-term. They were hoping short-term. They weren't grounded in clarity. They were floating on emotion. The calm investor operates differently. The calm investor expects storms. They prepare for downturns long before they arrive. They build systems that function even when emotions run high. They understand that volatility is not a sign to panic, but a sign to remain grounded. When the crowd screams, they stay quiet. When the crowd rushes, they stay still. When the crowd surrenders, they stay disciplined. This is not arrogance, it is preparation. Staying rational during downturns requires brutal honesty. You must face your fear without obeying it. You must acknowledge the discomfort without letting it dictate your choices. Fear is normal. Fear is valid. But fear does not have to lead. When markets fall, the irrational mind focuses on the pain of the moment. The rational mind focuses on the opportunity of the future. The irrational mind sees loss as a verdict. The rational mind sees loss as volatility. This shift in perception is everything. Resilience means you do not let temporary conditions erase permanent principles. Your system matters more than your fear. Your long-term vision matters more than short-term discomfort. Your identity as the calm investor matters more than the crowd's panic. When you have clarity on who you are and how you operate, chaos cannot easily break you. You become the constant in a world of fluctuations. News cycles are designed to provoke emotion. They amplify fear because fear captures attention. They exaggerate risk because risk makes people watch. They sensationalize movement because movement keeps people hooked. If you react to news the same way the crowd reacts, you will make crowd decisions. And crowd decisions do not build wealth, they destroy it. The calm investor treats the news as a data point, not a direction. You observe it, but you don't let it dictate your next move. You remain rational while others get swept into the emotional current. Bubbles are another test of resilience. During euphoric markets, rationality becomes rare. The crowd stops thinking. They start celebrating. They believe nothing can fall, nothing can reverse, nothing can fail. They confuse momentum with certainty, but the calm investor sees clearly. They recognize that euphoria is as dangerous as panic. They understand that when everyone assumes infinite upside, risk becomes invisible. The calm investor stays grounded in reality, not possibility. They don't chase hype because hype is the enemy of discipline. Resilience is a skill. It is built through repetition. Every time you remain calm during volatility, you strengthen it. Every time you resist the crowd's fear, you grow it. Every time you make a rational decision in an emotional moment, you reinforce it. Resilience is not a gift. It is trained. And every downturn becomes a chance to sharpen it further. Staying rational does not mean you ignore risk. It means you assess it clearly. It means you follow your system instead of your adrenaline. It means you evaluate probabilities instead of reacting to emotions. Resilience allows you to think clearly when clarity becomes rare. It allows you to act with intention when others act with desperation. It allows you to see opportunity where others see disaster. When the market breaks, most investors lose more than money. They lose their psychological footing. They lose confidence. They lose patience. They lose discipline. But the calm investor grows stronger because every crisis reinforces their identity, strengthens their system, and fortifies their perspective. They learn how to function in chaos without becoming chaotic themselves. Resilience is the bridge between judgment and mastery. Judgment tells you what matters. Resilience ensures you don't abandon that judgment under pressure. Judgment creates your strategy. Resilience protects it. Judgment is your compass. Resilience is your anchor. Together, they build an investor who cannot be easily moved. And now, as this chapter closes, the path becomes clearer. Resilience leads to something even deeper, something that turns calm into power and presence into strength. Because the calm investor is not just rational during crisis, they become unshakable. They move through storms without losing center. They become stronger when others fall apart. And that strength prepares you for the next stage, true calm in crisis, where chaos becomes your proving ground. Chapter 13, Unshakable Wealth, the Compounding Power of Emotional Mastery. Wealth does not grow from knowledge alone. It grows from continuity. It grows from stability. It grows from the quiet, consistent execution that only an emotionally mastered mind can sustain. Emotional chaos breaks compounding. Calm continuity fuels it. And this chapter ties everything together: identity, systems, neutrality, patience, judgment, into one powerful truth. Emotional mastery is the force that makes compounding unstoppable. Compounding is simple on paper, but brutally difficult in practice. Not because the math is complicated, but because emotions interfere. Fear pushes you out too early. Greed pulls you in too aggressively. Impatience makes you jump strategies. Ego convinces you to override your own rules. Every emotional disruption interrupts compounding, weakens your plan, and resets your progress. The market is not your biggest opponent. Your emotional instability is. Emotional mastery changes the entire game. When your identity is grounded as the calm investor, your behavior becomes consistent. When your systems are stronger than your impulses, your actions become predictable. When your mind is neutral, your decisions become logical. When patience is your weapon, your time horizon expands. When judgment replaces prediction, your choices become strategic. All of these elements, working together, create an investor capable of sustaining compounding without sabotage. The chaotic investor experiences compounding like a broken staircase, one step forward, one emotional misstep backward. They interrupt gains with panic. They interrupt discipline with urges. They interrupt strategy with novelty. They collapse in downturns and overextend in good times. Their journey is jagged and unstable. It feels exhausting because their emotions constantly reset their progress. But the calm investor's journey is smooth and upward, not because the market is always kind, but because they are consistent in spite of it. Emotional mastery accelerates compounding by removing the interruptions. Every year you stay grounded, your returns compound uninterrupted. Every time you avoid emotional mistakes, your capital remains intact. Every moment you act from strategy instead of impulse, you strengthen your trajectory. Emotional mastery turns time into a powerful ally instead of a painful test. It allows compounding to operate at full force. But emotional mastery also compounds more than money. It compounds confidence. Confidence grows from consistency. Confidence grows from clarity. Confidence grows from knowing you can trust yourself not just on good days, but on difficult ones. When you consistently act from calm instead of fear, your belief in your own discipline deepens. This belief becomes a new kind of wealth, an internal wealth that shapes every decision you make. As your confidence compounds, your clarity compounds as well. You begin to see patterns others miss. You begin to filter noise from signal effortlessly. You begin to know when to act, when to wait, when to adjust. A clear mind can generate better decisions at scale, and better decisions compound into a stronger future. Emotional mastery sharpens clarity because it removes the distortions that cloud perception. By staying calm, you see truth instead of panic, opportunity instead of chaos. Compounding is not only financial, it is psychological. One calm decision creates the conditions for another. One disciplined moment makes the next more natural. One neutral response to volatility reinforces your identity. Soon emotional mastery turns into emotional momentum. You become the kind of person who stays balanced without trying, who remains steady without forcing it, who navigates uncertainty without becoming uncertain internally. This is what unshakable wealth truly means. Not wealth that never fluctuates, but wealth built on a foundation that cannot be easily broken. You can endure downturns because your identity is stable. You can survive uncertainty because your systems are strong. You can capitalize on opportunities because your mind is clear. Emotional chaos cannot uproot you because your roots are deep. Emotional waves cannot destabilize you because your center is solid. The calm investor understands that the internal world fuels the external world. Emotional mastery is the engine that allows strategy, judgment, patience, and discipline to function without interruption. When your emotions stop sabotaging your actions, your long-term plan becomes unstoppable. You no longer drift away from your goals during turbulent times. You no longer abandon your process when results take time. You no longer break your own momentum. You become consistent, predictably, reliably consistent. And consistency is rare. Consistency is powerful. Consistency is the reason why two investors with the same knowledge produce completely different outcomes. Knowledge without mastery leads to sporadic success. Mastery without knowledge leads to controlled growth. But knowledge combined with mastery leads to exponential compounding. The calm investor is not the smartest person in the room. They are the most consistent, and that consistency produces unshakable wealth. Emotional mastery also gives you resilience during the long, quiet stretches where nothing dramatic happens. Most investors grow restless during these periods. They crave movement, excitement, stimulation. They feel like they should be doing more. But the calm investor understands that compounding works silently. Growth often hides until it reveals itself dramatically. Emotional mastery keeps you committed through the boring stretches where real wealth is quietly forming. This chapter brings you to a moment of triumph, not because the journey ends, but because you now see how everything fits together. Identity gave you direction, systems gave you structure, neutrality gave you clarity, patience gave you time, judgment gave you adaptability. Combined, they give you emotional mastery, your greatest financial asset. And now, with emotional mastery anchored within you, you are ready for the final transformation. The next chapter will not just conclude the journey, it will reveal the ultimate evolution, becoming unshakable, becoming calm in all conditions, becoming the signal in a world ruled by noise. Final chapter, you become the signal in the noise. You began this journey surrounded by noise, pulled by fear, pushed by urgency, shaped by reactions that were never truly yours. But now you stand transformed, calm, deliberate, disciplined, powerful. You have moved from emotional chaos to strategic clarity, from reactive behavior to intentional creation. You have built an identity that does not crumble under pressure, a mind that does not bend to noise, a system that does not fail when emotions surge. You have become the signal in the noise. The world will not get quieter. Markets will rise and fall. Opinions will flood your screens. Headlines will try to provoke you. Crowds will rush from one extreme to another. But you no longer move with them. You no longer follow fear. You no longer chase excitement. Your decisions come from a deeper place now. Your center, your identity, your mastery. You act from clarity, not confusion. From patience, not pressure. From judgment, not impulse. Look at who you are now. You are someone who can hear the noise without becoming part of it. Someone who can feel emotion without being controlled by it. Someone who can face uncertainty without losing direction. You are steady when others shake. You are composed when others panic. You are grounded when others search for something to hold on to. This is your evolution. This is the quiet strength you have built piece by piece. You have learned that calm is not weakness, but controlled power. That patience is not passivity, but strategic timing. That neutrality is not detachment, but clarity. You understand now that wealth is not created by reacting to every storm, but by standing firm through them. You understand that compounding is not merely math, but the reflection of your discipline, your judgment, your emotional mastery. You understand that your greatest advantage is the mind you have built. And the truth is this: you will be tested again. There will be panic. There will be euphoria. There will be days when emotion tries to reclaim its throne. But you are not who you were before. You know how to pause, how to breathe, how to see clearly through fog, how to return to your identity when chaos rises. You know how to protect your focus. You know how to protect your future. You know how to protect yourself from yourself. This journey has changed you because it brought you home to your own power. It taught you that mastery is not found in trying to control the market, but in learning to control your reactions to it. It taught you that discipline is freedom, that structure is strength, that calm is advantage, that your internal world shapes your external results. And because you have mastered the inner game, the outer game now bends in your favor. You become the signal in the noise by living with intention while others live in reaction, by following your system through storms while others abandon theirs, by trusting long-term vision while others chase short-term highs. By acting with precision while others act with panic, you stand out not because you shout louder, but because you move smarter. You see the truth beneath the turbulence. You hear the clarity beneath the chaos. You have become someone the noise cannot touch. This is your final transformation. You no longer seek calm. You generate it. You no longer hope for clarity. You carry it. You no longer chase mastery. You embody it. The market will move, but you remain steady. The world will shift, but you remain centered. You are no longer part of the emotional storm. You are the calm within it. And from this moment forward, you build wealth the way you now live, quietly, intentionally, unshakably.